Everybody to Ravenstar's Witching Hour. I'm your host, Solaris BlueRaven. I'm here with my very special guest, Captain Henry Kroll. Henry, you with me?
Yes, I'm still here.
All right. And what's the title of your book, your new book? What's the name of it again?
Well, not exactly sure yet. When the Giants Return.
Okay. Nice.
You know, there may be hell to pay. You know, in the book itself, I listed all 800 FEMA camps. I listed a whole chapter on cancer cures. And a lot of this stuff I had on my computer, so it was simply a matter of cut and paste. Mm-hmm. And there's something afoot there. The Jade Helm exercises in Texas. There's something having to do with when these guys return in 2036. Mm-hmm. That was one of the predictions when they return. So, but I don't know exactly when they're going to show up again. But you know, it's apparently they've been here before about 3 times, and they come up to pick up this gold. And I never understood how the gold could be sprayed into the upper atmosphere. But once I got to thinking about it, I realized that, well, they could turn it into Orm powder or be white powder of gold, and it would stay up there for practically ever. And it would definitely benefit the plants, the whole planet, because their gardens would grow better, it would be warmer, the people would be smarter, and they could live for practically ever.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now, their king, Anu itself, and he showed up 4,000 years ago. His 2 sons were Enlil and Enki. Well, Enlil there's a statue I put in the book of him, and he was mean. He killed a lot of his slaves off, and if they didn't work. And these statues picture them standing up, holding a whip in one hand, and what kind of looks like a house cat clinging to their other side. Mm-hmm. But you got to realize these guys are 20 foot tall, and that is not a house cat. That is a full-grown lion. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if you didn't behave, he could just turn his lion loose and he'd eat you. So they weren't very benevolent, you know, and they supposedly created mankind, but it's a mixture of our DNA is a mixture of their DNA and others to mine gold, because the Igigi were rebelling and they were dying off, and they didn't have enough of them. So anyway, the last time they left, according to Genesis, they gave us dominion over the planet, over all the fish in the sea and the animals and everything on the entire planet. It says this in Genesis. So when they get back here, you know, they're going to find out that over 3/4 of the rainforest have been cut down and burned into charcoal, and half the fish are missing in the oceans, and the oxygen's been depleted, and you know, half the topsoil, good stuff is washed down into the ocean because of poor farming practices. Radiation levels in the northern hemisphere have doubled in the last 70 years. Because we've exploded 1,800 atomic bombs, mostly in Nevada someplace, and a lot of them underground. And Russia was doing above-ground tests, about 1,500 of them. And other nations of the world, France, England, Israel, all of them have been playing around with this stuff. We detonated 10 of these atomic bombs over Antarctica, supposedly to rout out the Nazis that were living out underground in Neuschwabenland down there with their submarines and underground tunnels. But it opened up an ozone hole over Antarctica that's slowly been closing over the decades. But, you know, we haven't been very good stewards of the planet. So what are they going to do with us when they get here? You know, that's the thing. That's the question. And then how are they going to give them the gold? Is old President Donald Trump going to bend over on bended knee and then hand them the keys to Fort Knox and the repository at Wall Street, you know?
Right, like there's anything in Fort Knox anymore, I don't know. You know, you did mention 2036. Where did that number come from?
It was on the internet. There's somebody predicted they were to return at that time, but I don't know how accurate that is.
Right. I don't think I'll be around anyway. If that were the case,
they could be closer than as far as we know. Because it could be on the other side of the sun. You know, just sort of hiding back there as we orbit around the sun. And the SOHO satellite sees these gigantic spaceships diving in and out of the sun. They call them sun divers, more than one of them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know what they are, but they're huge. I mean, they're almost the size of our own moon, and they're going into the sun, picking up energy, and then coming back out again.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You've heard of the sun divers. You can look it up on YouTube and watch it. You know, it's just unbelievable. But getting back to these ancient buildings that they built all over too, you know, when they arrived here last time, according to Zachariah Sitchin's translation of these papyrus scrolls, he specifically states that they were about 50% deteriorated. So he made up some of it, and they were very hard to read. But they had to entertain them when they arrived here, and they fed them on large platters, right, made of gold. And then they would entertain them, and then they would bed them down someplace. Well, they had, at that time, they built all these big buildings like the Pantheon in Greece and the temple at Dendra in Egypt. It has 128 columns that are almost 40 foot tall and 20 foot wide doorways. And, you know, all these temples in Greece and Rome and all over with 30 foot high ceilings. And all the churches in Europe have 30 foot high ceilings and 10 foot high doorways, or 20 foot wide doorways. 10 foot wide, I mean. Well, you know, why did they build buildings like that? You know, like the Lincoln Memorial with a 25 foot tall Abe Lincoln sitting up there on a throne, and huge building, all these huge columns in front of it.
Mm-hmm.
And I always thought when I was a little kid that didn't quite look right. It didn't look like it was from this earth, that type of architecture.
Right.
Where did that architecture come from in the first place, especially in ancient times? Who made that up? You know, that's off-world architecture, I think, personally.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so why did they build these buildings, you know, like with 30 foot high ceilings, when at the time that the average person was out there was 4 foot tall and herding goats for a living?
Mm-hmm.
Was that just, were they built to impress the goat herders?
Or to impress the gods and the illusion of, well, you've heard the story of the Titans and, of course, the Atlanteans, and so it strikes me as beings who are giants beyond the word giant. Yep.
So I don't understand why they build all these huge buildings, and then the ones at Cusco and Tiwanaku were knocked down by some sort of massive earthquake, and then there's been a lot of looting of all the gold and everything that was attached to them at the time, but you know, we're holding all this gold for some reason on deposit. It has some industrial uses to make electronic contacts for cell phones and computers, but other than that, we don't really have a use for it. But you know, there's 34,000 tons on hand, the total global supply of gold. You couldn't put it on one ship. You know, there's that much of it.
Right, and they still haven't. I'm sure they haven't even officially mined all of it. I mean, it's everywhere. Gold everywhere.
There's still a lot of it in the, you know, in the ground in various places. Quite a bit here in Alaska too, and copper and stuff.
Yeah.
So you know, it's just questions that I put together, and I lay the evidence out there for you to decide and show these pictures in the book, and it's. You know, interesting, all the skeletons, you know, some of them are massive. You couldn't even carry the skull in a wheelbarrow.
Mm-hmm.
They must probably have a 55-gallon brain capacity. Maybe they were smarter than us, you know, with that much brains. And apparently they live practically forever. Enki and Enlil, and then Enlil, and Anu, the president or the king. According to Zachariah Sitchin, they brought kingship to America, and after they to the world, I mean, after they arrived here, we had kings. See, that's a type of government.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, we were just tribes, wandering tribes, and herders, and we didn't have much agriculture because they introduced agriculture. You see these Sumerian scrolls or clay bands. If you roll them out, they show the figures of the king being 10 foot tall and a little 5 foot guy is in the front of him, and he's demonstrating what looks like a plow made of wood to plow up the earth. So they're commemorating the time when they gave us agriculture to plow, to make food, you know, to grow food.
Right. Well, they do say that there were giants here, and of course, I know a lot of researchers and archaeologists have discovered fascinating information pertaining to that. So, yeah, I mean, what they don't share with us is unfortunate, when it comes down to these certain areas, especially like Smithsonian.
Well, they've been wanting to keep it under control, to keep the society just moving along at the same pace it does, because it's profitable for certain people, in the industries.
Mm-hmm.
And they can make war whenever they decide to, and it boosts the arms production, and everybody gets richer and that sort of thing. And if we knew anything, and if we were smarter, we would probably start rebelling against this craziness that we're trapped in. But right now, we're waking up from this 2,000 years of collective amnesia that we've been in, and there's so many of these things being dug up around the world that you cannot deny it anymore. It's getting to the point where you just can't hide it anymore. They had 70,000 mummies they buried in a cave in the Rocky Mountains. Most of them are 10 foot tall and had red hair and blue eyes, and all over the world. They found a person in a geode. It was a very, very, very small person. And I was looking at one I've got his picture on the internet. He's like 10 inches tall, but they think it was an infant that didn't grow right. It maybe 6 years old. It was like 10 inches tall. But
yeah, they talk to the little people too,
Yeah, I mean, there's all races of people all over the world prior to us. But they want us to think that we're the only ones and the only intelligent life in the universe, and it just isn't true.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah, it's pretty much a disservice.
It's about societal control and manipulation. So I put in a chapter on sovereignty and also the various means of staying healthy and cancer cures in the book.
Nice.
So it makes it a little more valuable in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
But the hoping that it wakes people up, to what's going on. That's my main objective here with putting it together. But I'm also having a lot of fun doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been emailing it to a lot of friends just to try to get some feedback on it,
Yeah, let me double check my archives. You probably sent it to me. I just need to look for it. But yeah, definitely want to read it.
I'll send it to you again. I've been improving it since then. And I even got pictures of the Ugani underwater site there. It's a huge underwater castle under 200 feet of water off the southern coast of an island off Japan, Ugani.
Right.
And there's one picture of a diver there swimming along. You can see the scale of it from him.
I like that one. That's an interesting
there's
site.
Stairways. They're like 2 or 3 foot high stairways. Now, when we build stairways, the rule of thumb is you want to go no more than 6 inches per step. If you go more than that, you have to raise your leg too high and you can trip over your stairs, see.
Mm-hmm.
As a carpenter, I built a few stairs in my time. You want to keep it around 6 inches.
Mm-hmm.
You can't go more than that. So why would they build stairways with like 3 foot high stairs?
Right. Yeah. That's very eerie when you look at that underwater. That site is amazing.
Whoever was there, must have been very large.
Mm-hmm.
And then we was always wondering how they built the pyramids with 5-ton blocks of stone. Well, the guys probably sat down cross-legged and just stacked them up there one at a time, I don't know.
It'd be interesting to time travel in the illusion of back to see exactly what was going down insofar as what kind of race was here. It'd be very, very interesting.
Yeah, and I put in that temporal picture of those helicopter and stuff in Dendra in Egypt there, where they show this Black Hawk helicopter, but it's got a notch in it where a 5-ton block of stone would fit in that notch, see?
Mm-hmm.
And they could have a little hydraulic cylinder in the back and just push a button and grab a hold of the block and pick it up and fly it over there and put it down in the right spot and then go get another one. A fleet of those, you could build 2.5 million blocks of stone pyramid in a few years, but you'd need quite a few helicopters, Mm-hmm. And right under it, I put a picture of the Sky Crane helicopter, that's,
Right.
Back in the 70s in Tuxini Bay, Siri discovered a gold mine below the volcano over there, Iliana gold mine. They thought they was huge and rich. They were going to become billionaires, but didn't quite turn out that way. They called the biggest mining company on Earth at the time, which was Cominco, And they had Sky Crane helicopters flying 40-foot vans in there, and they flew 6 40-foot vans over this cannery when we were delivering fish at different times in there, and 2 double-wide houses, half at a time. They flew them in there and put them together. And one of them was their essay office, and the other one was cookhouse and bunkhouse. And I flew over there myself in my little airplane a few years ago and landed there on their airfield. It's pretty high altitude, so it doesn't really thaw out until late July. You can't land there because there's ice on it or snow. So but I landed there in the fall, and there was a moose stomping around there, but I wasn't able to shoot them, a big one. Those vans are chock full of core samples all the way to the top in 40-pound boxes on either side on 4 of those vans. So Cominco spent $3 million developing that mine, and then they told CIRI, the Cook Inlet Region Native Corporation, that it wasn't a big enough deposit to interest them. This was back in the 70s. So then later on, they leased it out to some miner from California. He went in there and he took a lot of placer gold out of there and left, and it's just abandoned ever since. They got a 4-cylinder Cat generator, 60 kW. They got a 10 kW Deutz air cool. They got a D4 Caterpillar sitting there. They got compactors and a case wheel tractor and cookhouse and a lot of facilities back in there, just sitting there, just falling apart.
That's interesting.
Brown bear broke into their dynamite shed there in the back and ate all their dynamite. But
gosh, wow, that's interesting how they just kind of left it.
Well, I don't know. They eat dynamite. I had them eat my stuff. I used to have a bunch of dynamite myself, but it's all gone now.
That's quite interesting. Makes you wonder. It makes you wonder if they're just looking for gold or something else, actually.
No, it was platinum. They drilled it. It's platinum and gold. The core samples are 2 inches diameter and 2 foot long, and there's about, I don't know, each box weighs 40 pounds, and there's 6 of these core samples in each box, about 2 feet long. So that's 12 foot of core sample in each box, and they're 40, 50 pounds, 40 pounds. And they're stacked all the way to the ceiling. They probably took some of the better ones out for further analysis. And they had 2 cutoff saws there with water that would run on the blades to cut these core samples in half and lengthwise to look inside of them with microscopes and, magnifying glasses. And anyway, I scraped up some of that residue myself, about 20 pounds of it, and took it home, and I ran it through my gold wheel, but I couldn't get any gold out of it. It was too light. So then I panned it out very carefully, and I got 2 ounces of stuff, and it was a whitish metal, and I know it's platinum group metals, mostly.
Nice.
And I melted one of them down, and I got about a 3/4 of an ounce platinum button.
That's kind of cool. All right. So you also wrote about the cancer cure. I'm curious insofar as technically we're not, obviously they don't like to say cure, but what exactly did you put in there insofar as remedies go?
Oh, there's many of them that I collected over the years, but the more important ones I think are just baking soda. You have to alkalize the body, but you take maple syrup and you make a candy, and then you throw in a couple of tablespoons of baking soda, or you can make it out of honey too, for that matter, any kind of good quality sugar. And the cancer cells just eat that sugar up like crazy, but then the baking soda kills them.
That's interesting. I've heard of that.
It's really, really simple stuff, and you can get it off the internet. It's been around for a long time. And there's other ones too. You eat a handful of almonds every day. You get Laetril from almonds.
Right.
And it does cure cancer, contrary to what they want you to believe. There's just no money in it, for the pharmaceutical companies.
Right. Yeah. Well, remember the old Edgar Casey remedies? I used to like a lot of those old remedies. If you're familiar with Casey work.
And in my book, or on my website, there are 2 free ebooks. I don't know if I think I mentioned it last time, but one has a green cover, and it belonged to my wife's grandmother. And it's written by 500 women, and it's just recipes compiled by the Chicago Tribune. And you just click on it, and you can download it. It's a really interesting book. It's before refrigeration primarily, so you're going to get, ways of preserving food and ways of, different recipes out of there that probably haven't heard about in a while.
Right. No, I think that's wonderful. And of course, which website is that one off of?
Well, it's in guarddogbooks.com.
Okay. Great. We have that posted in chat.
There's a prepper manual also written in 1910 on there, so you how to build rockers and sluice boxes and land cruising. And it's just a little book, I don't know, 120 pages. And it's on how to read ancient maps. And that was my wife's grandfather's book,
Nice. That sounds fun.
So they're out of copyright, so we can, scan them and give them away free. Just click on them and they're yours, I
think that's great. I like the ancient maps one. That sounds pretty cool. I'll have to check it out.
And I may do that with this one on the giants too. I don't know if I can print it or not. There may be copyright material in there. I'm not sure. I'm still playing with it. Some of the pictures may have a claim to them or something.
Right.
But I've been, giving them away to friends. And
yeah, it sounds really interesting. And also, you said you incorporated the Jade Helm and the FEMA camps?
Yeah, they're in there, most of them, and that is really crazy. They have 2 FEMA camps in Anchorage, right? In Alaska, I mean. One is Fort Wainwright up near Fairbanks, below southern part of Fairbanks. And the other's in Anchorage there. Well, the one in Fort Wainwright, they say, can handle 3 million people in one instance, or 2.5 million people. Now, there's only 650,000 people in the entire state of Alaska. So, how are you going to get 3 million people into that camp? Just using basic logic, if you can use your brain just a little tiny bit there. Say, for example, if you could put 300 people on a 747, which would be a pretty big load, how many trips would you have to make with a 747 aircraft to get 3 million people to that location?
Right. Well, I don't think I'd want to go to that location.
I know, you wouldn't want to be there, obviously, but I mean, but that would take you 1,000 flights with a 747 to transport that many people there. So this is what our government thinks. And they're not thinking at all, obviously. So you have 3 million people there. So how are you going to get a pound of food for each person and water for each person to live for, say, one day? You'd have to have 3 million pounds of food, right? Well, how are you going to get that up there?
Maybe the intent is to starve them and just kind of keep them trapped.
Well, they'd be eating each other, in a short period of time, and then it'd be in worse than the Nazi Holocaust, actually. So I put all this stuff in there just to try to wake people up what's going on, and it's just our government's gone insane.
I agree.
They're just totally crazy. You cannot believe the stuff they're doing. It's just.
It feels like a nightmare, Henry. It really does, and I don't think there's a safe zone.
And then they then they worry about being $16 trillion in debt, and we've got hundreds or more, 100 army bases all over the world that we're maintaining with people in there, just occupying places and on and on and on, just nuts. So, but they're going to have to lock people up if they can't handle it. The religious right or the whatever, the anti-government people into these camps, I suppose, when the Anunnaki arrive. And what are they going to do with us? So it isn't our fault that we half destroyed the world. They gave us dominion over the planet. Are they going to be mad at us when they get here? These are just questions I'm asking.
Right. Well, there's that saying from Aliens, nuke from space, it's the only way to be sure. That's what comes to mind. But who knows? But yeah, it's a very strange world we live in. It's very disjointed and just bizarro. If you ask me. It's very, very strange. There's no doubt. Well, yeah, I like the idea of that book, and yeah, keep writing for sure. Just keep cranking those books out.
I'm sort of switching it around a little bit. I don't know exactly how to work in Zachariah Sitchin's translation, whether I put it in the front of the book or the rear of the book. But anyway, the point is that, they supposedly gave us dominion over the planet. We're not doing a very good job as stewards. And I never considered myself to be an environmentalist, but the way I see things going, they just can't survive anymore.
Yeah.
We've got 3 reactors leaking radiation into the Pacific Ocean off the coast of Japan there, constant leakage for the next who knows how long. You got to keep pouring water on this stuff and it runs into the ocean. Well, these king salmon are the biggest fish, biggest salmon there is, and they migrate out into the middle of the Pacific Ocean. They go out much further than the other species of salmon, and red salmon stay out there 2 to 3 years, and they only go about a third of the way out, but king salmon go all the way to the middle of the Pacific Ocean, and they stay out there for 8 years, up to 8 years anyway. So here you got this radiation leaking out there, and then you got the plant plankton there, the phytoplankton that grows out there. It might suck up a little of this stuff. And then you got the zooplankton comes along and eats the plant plankton. Then you got your minnows and your little herring and what do they call those, needlefish and stuff that eat the zooplankton. Then the king salmon are out there feeding on the herring and the needlefish and whatever is available for them. So, and they're out there longer than all the other salmon, so obviously they're going to pick up more radiation than the other fish, and it's been concentrated 4 to 5 times by the time they eat it. Mm-hmm. So they're going to migrate back into the Kenai River over here so the sport fishermen can make big bucks taking out, the guides can, take these guys out there, catch a king salmon, and, oh, it's wonderful. They're going to take it home and eat it and smoke it, but what kind of radiation levels are they going to have, after they concentrate it again?
Mm-hmm. That's a big concern.
Big unknown questions there, see? And nobody gets it. Nobody understands this stuff. It's just crazy. And it's all based on money. The state has created this guide service over here so they could take tourists out, and they sell licenses for money. And then they open the dip net fisheries, and everybody is allowed to go out there. They buy a $30 permit and a $120 dip net, and they cruise up and down the river with a 50 or 100 horsepower outboard motor. Supposedly, they limited the horsepower to 50 horsepower on the Kenai River, and they drift down the river with this dip net, and they catch a salmon maybe or a flounder or something, and then they go full speed back up the river again and do the same thing over and over again. There's about a 5-mile stretch or a 6-mile stretch from the mouth of the river to the bridge. Man, they're not allowed to go above the bridge. It's kind of a low bridge anyway. And they drift down the river. Well, they have over 400 boats. Actually, it was more like 500 or 600 last summer that are doing this. But let's just use the number 400 to be conservative. And you take 50 horsepower each, that's 2,000 horsepower. 4 times 5 is 2,000, 50 horse. And travel in when they're running wide open. So anyway, they running at an average RPM of 2,000 RPM, and they're about 50 cubic inches on average, this displacement of the cylinders. So every time the thing turns over, let's say it's a 4-cycle outboard, at least it's going to displace 50 cubic inches per revolution. So 2,000 times 50 times 60 minutes in an hour times 24 hours in a day times 30 days times 400 outboards works out to around 2.7 million cubic foot of carbon monoxide injected into the river water.
Mm-hmm.
And our biologists and the guys can't think this way. The scientists just don't, and then they don't want to because it's money behind it. Municipalities want the money, and the tourists want the salmon, and et cetera.
Right.
And so normally when I go cruising up and down the river, I have a 42-foot boat, and it's got a dry exhaust, and it's a very efficient Cummins diesel, and it injects the exhaust into the air, not into the water. So I'm not really contaminating the river. But I go slow up and down the river, and normally when they're not dip netting, the river banks are nice and smooth. So when the dip net season opens, as the tide drops, all of the wakes from all these outboards roaring back and forth, it erodes the riverbanks away, so it looked like curves. It got little steppings, 6-inch high steps all the way down to the low tide mark. As the river drops, slowly, it erodes tons and tons of this fine silt into the water supply.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's pretend you're a salmon, okay? And you're about a mile offshore there. You smell the mouth of the river there with your olfactory nerves, and you're pumping your gills, and you enter this cloud of silt, and it covers up your gills so that you can't breathe very well. And then you got to pump your gills a little harder, and then you start sucking in this carbon monoxide and other contaminants that are in the water. You got to travel upstream for 6 miles until you make it to the bridge. And if you can make it to the bridge, and then you might make it up the rest of the way to the river and spawn, but a lot of that stuff went into your bloodstream, carbon monoxide and stuff, which also goes into the egg sacs and into the eggs themselves. So salmon are up there laying their eggs, and we just don't know if there's any carbon monoxide gets into the eggs themselves. I'm pretty sure there does.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the long-term effect going to be on the salmon runs as far as having that toxin injected into the eggs,
Right, exactly. Well, I'm curious to see how many people are going to get sick really just down the road in a few years from all this contamination that's not being measured.
Well, it's estimated that 50% of the population is going to have diabetes by 2020.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's due to the corn syrup and other fake sugars that we consume, that it's in our food. And they don't want to cure diabetes, because they sell, shots and the drugs, to keep you going. So I've kind of, in this book that I put together on the giants, I've outlined the different types of slavery that they have put us under. We've got a monetary slavery where we are using these debt notes, and there's no way we can get out of debt. And we have to keep grinding away and working harder, and the taxes keep getting more and more. And so it's kind of a debt slavery. And you got the actual slavery where they put you in jail and make you work for nothing. Then you got healthcare slavery where you're sick all the time and you got to depend on drugs. You can't go out away from into the bush or fend for yourself because you got to hang around there to get your diabetes medicine.
Right. It's just like a vicious cycle, isn't it?
Yeah, I know. I just trying to put it all together, make some sense out of this stuff. That I'm just one poor guy with a poor brain, and I stayed in that heritage house. I could feel my IQ slipping 5 points every day I was in there.
Oh, no. Well, you're out of there, though. That's good.
Yeah, I'm glad of
you
that.
Escaped,
it's
right?
Great to be home,
I bet.
Guys got to keep a sense of humor.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm glad you got through that surgery okay, for sure. Yeah, well, I'm not a firm believer in Western medicine. I understand that we need it at times, but, yeah, I prefer going holistic if I can. There's no doubt. Natural as I can. And the illusion of, which is hard to do now.
Yeah, we don't know what's in a lot of these vaccines. They wanted me to get a flu vaccine. Why? I don't get sick with the flu.
Yeah, you'll get the flu.
There's other ways
vaccine.
You can cure the flu with a bottle of brandy. Drink the half of it or most of it and wake up with a little hangover. The next day you're fine,
Yep. Do they push the vaccines up there? So they push them? They push the vaccines in Alaska?
Oh, yeah. They got them in the, signs up everywhere. Free flu vaccines,
Yeah, forget it. I hope you didn't get one.
No. I give up on those.
Yeah, you seem pretty healthy, Henry. So just
You get all this mercury and thermosil and other stuff that are in the vaccines, and then there's the mycoplasma incognitas. I've talked to one fellow that was a medic over in the Iraq wars, and this Gulf War syndromes are probably due to some of the weird stuff, the mycoplasma that are maybe in the vaccines,
Mm-hmm.
But there's no way to prove it.
Yeah, I don't discount it. That's for darn sure. And you're still affiliated with the Universal Life Church, aren't you? You were talking about that the last time you were on the show.
Well, yeah, I just sort of signed up to it, and anybody can do that, but I have this property I'm living on is owned by a nonprofit, but I don't own anything. You can go ahead and sue me. I don't care. And I just, got $170,000 in a new titanium hip, but I'm back to 6 foot tall now. I was about 5'11".
Oh wow, that's great.
They put the length of my leg 1.5 inches.
Mm-hmm.
But he had a rough time doing it.
Oh gosh, well I'm glad you got out of it. Like I said, and obviously you had a competent surgeon, so that's good, right?
Yeah, he's a Filipino guy, and he's really clever, and he does a lot of it. I can't remember the term for it, where you just use small incisions. You do it underneath there with cameras and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my left knee, I had him sew that together December 28th, and the bill for that was $14,000.
What a scam!
But they use a TV camera on one side and other instruments to do the sewing on the other side. So it's only like a 1/2 inch, 2 1/2 inch incisions, something like that,
mm-hmm.
for that operation. But anyway, I've been waiting for the technology to improve, but we still could use better hip joints and different things.
Mm-hmm.
And, we need to identify the cause of this arthritis to begin with and cure it more.
Yeah. What about cold weather? Do you think just living up where you live could be a contributing factor?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people just wear their joints out up here, just walking and carrying heavy loads and doing heavy labor,
mm-hmm.
which I've done quite a bit of.
Yeah. I would think that the colder temperatures might bother you, though. I mean, I don't know. Just intuitively
I don't know
speaking.
either. I required a lot of ice packs to keep the pain down. I know I had to put it on there to
mm-hmm.
it promotes the healing.
That's good.
So it's been quite an experience. I've learned a little bit.
Yeah. Well, like I said, you sound great. You just sound energetic and charged, and you sound good. So that's good. Got it all out of the way anyway. Hopefully it'll keep you out of the hospital. No more surgeries, right?
Yeah, not for a while there. We'll see how this turns out. See if they're going to pay for it.
Oh, good luck with your insurance. I don't know about insurance these days. It's all such a mess. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, I met a guy in the senior center. They worked on his back, and he's a $1 million man. That guy. He's got $1 million invested in him.
God, that's insane.
I mean, I could probably have gotten this surgery done for around $70,000, but it's $170 up here.
Mm-hmm.
The other place down in Seattle or some other place down there,
Right. Gosh, I could get a new car or a new house, or at least put a deposit on a nice house, right?
Well, yeah, I drive a Lamborghini or pretty good size, pretty decent boat. Airplane for $170,000.
I was gonna say, yeah, but it's good to get the surgery out of the way. But yeah, it's just unbelievable, skyrocketing everywhere. But yeah, the system is kind of a trap, isn't it? It's just completely an energy suck on so many different levels.
Yeah, I'm trying to make heads or tails of it in this book, by putting the various chapters in order
mm-hmm.
to where a person can understand it. I found some recent information on fluoride, where the government's finally admitted it as a toxin and that they shouldn't be putting it in the water.
Right. After how many years? Yeah, but think about how many years it's been going on, and all of a sudden, that's infuriating, actually.
Yeah.
Finally come clean. Is. Well, they realize that everybody knows it already. Everybody knows what's going on, so they don't have much of a choice but to come clean at this point.
Yeah, Hitler was putting in the food of the prisoners in his prison camp so they wouldn't riot, and that's basically what they're doing to to us.
Yep. People are being lulled and drugged.
Well, with this new election coming up, it'll be interesting to see who gets in there. It'll be either Trump or Cruz.
I hope it's Trump. Yeah, me too. And I'll tell you point blank, it's very concerning because people are starting to flip out already. So all these crazy people that are, after them. And it just seems like people are getting triggered right and left. But what's really amazing to me is that they're so preoccupied with the election, they're not paying attention to all the criminal activity that's been going on in D.C. for the past 8 years. Have they forgotten about the NDAA and all these executive orders that have been signed?
Right. Well, I put all those executive orders that were instrumental in initiating all of these 800 FEMA camps. They're all in there, in a big long list, in the book. It's a lot of material in there. It's just trying to sort it out and make heads or tails of it.
Right.
And it ties in with the giants, though. They were here. They created us. There were all different species of them. Oh, yeah, there's a picture of one in the mountains in Africa, and it's a vertical footprint in a rock, embedded in solid rock, and it turned rock at one time fossilized. Well, that footprint's got to be over 4 foot long, maybe 5 foot long, So somebody that size, how would you feed him breakfast? 50-foot tall guy,
That's pretty interesting. I think I might have seen that picture. Sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, you'd have to have a chicken coop full of T-Rexes, right? Mm-hmm. And then gather up your T-Rex eggs just to have breakfast.
I think I'd like a T-Rex for a pet. I always tell everybody, It's like
you have to have eggs about 2 or 3 foot in diameter, just to feed the guy.
Right. Well, then you have to look at that. Oh, go ahead.
You probably could eat them like chicken too, barbecue them.
Right. I was thinking about Zecharia Sitchin, and a lot of people say his transfer, his interpolation of the data wasn't really correct. I don't know, so I haven't really done a lot of research on him at all.
Well, it kind of makes sense, But anyway, they have different names for him. And then Thoth, the Egyptian, he supposedly was the engineer of the pyramid, but he went by other names. But he was the son of Enki, or related there somehow. Mm-hmm. And he gave mankind, they were more benevolent to the mankind before they left the planet, and they gave mathematics and healing and architecture and all that. But I'm convinced a lot of that stuff's got to be off-world architecture, like the Pantheon in Greece and the domes and the big high columns in Washington D.C. Maybe they're just building that way to welcome the giants when they show up to make them feel at home.
Oh,
I'm sure it wasn't to impress us. It doesn't impress me any. It just looked kind of weird to me.
Mm-hmm. I like architecture. It depends, but yeah. Well, there are many mysteries, of course. I'm sure we'll see it at some point in the continuum. They'll reveal some of it, but you have to ask what's going on. With the mining. What comes to mind is the moon, and what they're mining up there. So, if they're mining,
and I'm sure they are. There's a lot of things going on there. You see rocks moving along the moon, and some tents or whatever it looked like camps on those Moriah areas. Astronomers have seen that. It's in the astronomical records, and it looks like they're repairing those areas where there's craters in those Moriah areas. Mm-hmm. And so, maybe they're creating a face on the moon. It look like Rush Limbaugh when they get done.
Yeah, really, the man in the moon and the illusion of. Well, I'm still waiting for the moon to break orbit and head towards Jupiter.
I think it will. Yeah, it's only receding about 1.5 inches a year. It's not very much, but I think that was in my book Cosmological Ice Ages. I'm convinced that the moon was put up there at that time to cause the flood and tilt Earth to thaw the ice caps back so that they could mine more gold, because we were in an ice age. We were like 9 light years from our heat source of Sirius A and B, and now we're at 8 light years and we're heading back toward it. But they had to bring the moon in there to bring the light or Earth back to life, because we lost most of our atmosphere. It's been severely depleted down below 14 pounds per square inch, but by whacking it, increased volcanism to release more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere and other gases that were trapped inside the Earth. And it separated Antarctica from South America. The Perry Reese maps show that it's connected. And also the impact raised up Antarctica about 3,000 feet. It has an average altitude above sea level, 7,500 feet right at the present time. That's why it's so cold.
Mm-hmm.
But at one time, there were coastlines and towns along the coast where you could sail over to South America and pick up gold and come back again. There were no westerly winds because the continents were connected there.
Right.
You know, the rough weather didn't exist. But anyway, according to Emmanuel Velikovsky's 100-page book that you can get offline for free, just type the first 3 words of the Bible into Google, and it's called In the Beginning, the book is titled. Mm-hmm. And read that. It's less than 100 pages. Chapter 3 deals with a time when there was no moon, and he was translating ancient Greek writings.
Right.
And I discovered this book after I wrote my book online by doing moon searches, and apparently the ancient Greeks talked about a time when there was no moon up there, and there were people on Earth, and they lived in the mountains and ate acorns. But that's what it translates from the ancient Greek. But anyway,
mm-hmm. Exactly.
And we couldn't find any cave paintings of the moon dating back more than about 9,000 years.
Right.
But mainstream science says it was formed by the Earth, and it just happens to be the exact larger moon than any other type of moon ever orbiting any other planet. And it's this happens to block the sun out for total eclipses and all this stuff. You know, just how it happens.
Right. I'm not buying that.
Way, you know.
I'm not buying that at all.
You know, we're supposed to believe all that, you know, in grade school. Like the Easter Bunny's coming up too, by the way.
Right. Exactly.
No, I do believe in the Easter Bunny. Might as well. What the hell, you know? Everything else.
Really?
Feed it.
Oh gosh.
Santa Claus, I'm not so sure about him. He's kind of alcoholic, red in the face, you know, and he beats up on his elves. His wife left him.
Oh, no. Well, that's kind of funny. But I think you're right, though. Yeah, I agree with you on that. I know that there was no moon at some point, and it was, well, some people say it was towed in, but it's very ominous. It's a very ominous little monitoring station. I call it the monitoring station.
Yeah, I think it was the Dropa people came from there. They were dropped off on Earth over in China about the same time, and they left these Dropa stones, 850 of them, and they found microtext on them, and they were supposedly translated by some Russian guy that they had arrived here 12,000 years ago, and they got caves. I actually saw one on the internet here recently where it's carved into the rock, very smooth walled caves where they went underground to survive. And it's high altitude there, and hardly any people could live there. And the average heights of the Chinese people that are living there, they may have interbred some way, I don't know, it's only 4 feet tall. It's a very harsh environment, you know. There's 850 of these stone discs with a hole in the middle of them. They look like those spaceships that were seen from NASA's photograph from NASA's Tether experiment, where the astronauts used a handheld camera and saw these round discs circling around the satellite cable that they'd stretched out for the Tether experiment. Yeah. STS-48, Shuttle Transfer Mission 48, I guess it was. So anyway, they're interesting. I put some pictures of those in the book also.
Nice. Well, that sounds good. Sounds like a nice little project to work on.
I think there's, you know, all different races of humans lived on the planet at one time. Big ones to the little tiny guys, you know, like a foot tall, or you know, the Irish people talk about the little people, you know, in Ireland and stuff. Sorry about that. My finger hit a button here.
It's okay. Didn't hear it, so good.
So, you know, it's just mainstream wants to keep us believing that we are the only inhabitants of Earth, and we're the only intelligent life in the universe, and we're not even intelligent, as far as I'm concerned. We got a
I'm really
long ways
concerned.
to go.
Yeah, it used to be. It seemed like the IQs have dropped severely over the past few decades. Yeah, I'm a little concerned there, Henry. I don't know what to say anymore. I think animals are more intelligent than people these days, or a lot of them.
I lost about 15 points just being in that heritage house for 10 days.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, that's no good. Any place like that is no good. Hospitals are terrible.
They're all right, but everything tastes the same. All the food, the breakfast, lunch, and dinner, all has the same flavor,
Well, probably no flavor. They don't season anything.
The only eggs we got were just those powdered scrambled eggs. They never had a fresh egg in there, Yeah. So I had my wife bring me an apple and a couple of bananas.
Oh, that's good. So she snuck in food. Excellent. No pizza? Do you guys have pizza out there? You're so remote.
Yeah, we bought some of those ones in the store. We had one tonight at DiGiorno. Some of those are okay, but she likes them. I don't care for pizza that much, but
homemade would be better. Yeah.
I fed part of my crust to the dog.
Yeah, they like the crust. No doubt about that one. Well, at least your nightmares being over there are over now. So
yeah, I'm looking forward to kind of building an airplane or saving money up to get another plane here, build one or the other.
Nice.
I got a hangar over there, so across the inlet, so I might as well use it.
Right. How long would it take you to build one?
I don't know. There's a couple hundred hours. Some of them have build times of around 200 or 300 hours. Depends on the model, They're kit planes, they're kits, a lot of them.
Right. Have you thought about getting a little drone?
Yeah, there's some real inexpensive one with a good camera on it, high definition camera. It's very small, and it's only less than $100.
Really?
It fits to your iPhone or your Android. You mount it right on the control thing, and you can it uses Wi-Fi to send the pictures to your Android.
That sounds kind of cool, especially where you live.
Yeah, you get up and take aerial photographs and stuff. Not sure when the Discovery Channel gets here, they use a lot of drones. If they do arrive here. But the reason why I have contacts with them because my daughter Sarah is in Juneau. We went on vacation, and we traveled. Took the state ferry to Juneau, Alaska, from Bellingham, Washington, and she has got a divorce from her husband and got a boyfriend there. He's got a 100-ton ocean license, and they run a rescue vessel. It's very fast. It goes 40 miles an hour. It's got 300 horsepower Yamaha outboards on it. But they were the support boat for the Discovery Channel when they filmed the Brown family episode, where they homesteaded this island out of Hoona, Alaska. And they had drones and, traveled back and forth.
Well, keep me posted on that.
He also runs a catamaran ferry. They haul 60 passengers to a mine out of Juneau area across the bay there to out of Auk Bay.
And you know what, Henry? We're just about running out of time here. Can you believe that?
Well, I'm running out of voice anyway.
I know you've been going fast forward. And it's been a pleasure to have you on. It's always wonderful to have you on so you can share information with us. It's always great. I do want to thank you for joining us. I do want to thank everybody for tuning in tonight. And also, please stay tuned for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Becky coming up next to sail you on to the night from down under, as they always do. Don't forget to spring forward, move your clocks forward. Right, everybody? Anything else you want to leave us with here? We've got a few minutes here, Henry.
Well, I like to email people this book and, try to get some feedback. And I don't think I probably should because of maybe copyright problems, but maybe giving it away would be a little different.
Yeah.
And, I'll send you another copy, and it's got a ton of photos in it.
Okay, great. And if people want a copy, can they just email you and you can send them a copy to read?
Possibly, yeah. It's hankkroll@gmail.com.
Excellent. Yeah. Well, you've
Yeah.
written it, right? So there might be some pictures in there that might be a copyright. Is that it?
Well, yeah, that and Zacharias Hitchens passed away, but I quoted him in quotation marks and took excerpts out of his book where he actually did the translation of these scrolls and the clay tablets. And he explains that he could not read the scrolls entirely because they were decayed about 50%, so so he made up some of the stuff about them, entertaining them when they arrive here.
So it's not.
However,
really okay, go ahead.
We may have to entertain them when they arrive here also. So here you got a bunch of guys like 20 foot tall. They all show up, right? They can't get into a bathroom stall. So what are they going to do? We're going to build a special outhouse for them in the middle of New York City.
Well, who knows? I don't know if his translation is very accurate. Maybe it's not. So who knows? But we'll find out.
Well, I'm not. He doesn't say they're 20 foot tall, but when you look at those pictures from the ancient statues of Samaria and the giant monoliths in Egypt and all these buildings, and you just got to assume they were giants. There's no other way around it.
Right. Yeah, it's a very fascinating information, though. There's no doubt about it. Well, I won't be on the planet if that's the right timeline. I probably won't even be here anyway, so I guess I won't worry about it. You might be here, Henry. You might outlive me.
Who knows,
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. Yeah.
Certainly will.
Looking forward to it,
Right. Well, I must say it's been really a pleasure to have you on again. I wish you all the best with your family over there. And, yeah, stay in touch and come back and let us know what's going on there with the Discovery Channel. I'm curious to see if you can get on there. That'd be great.
Yeah, the guy has he's their agent. He goes to Los Angeles, and then he's got an office in Texas.
Nice.
Been emailing him back and forth, I sent him a lot of pictures and videos. And They're really interested, We do a lot of weird stuff over there. It's different. It's in Alaskan bush,
Sounds like a great place to be filming. There's no doubt about that one. And, of course, your books are on your guarddog.books.com or Alaska Publishing, right?
Right.
Okay, we're out of time here. And thank you, Henry, so much. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Have a great week. Good night.
Thank you. Have a good weekend. Thanks.
Bye-bye.